Okay, so this was a sub-goal that we achieved a few days ago to do a tier list for the cleaners and Back 4 Blood on campaign, because that's what I've been playing, specifically for Nightmare. This is a Nightmare campaign cleaner tier list. Honestly, this is not going to take that long, because I think a lot of these are very self-explanatory. But I'm going to go into some details. I've seen or have played with just about every character in this game on Nightmare to a decent amount. And I'm going to be rating cleaners on a few things like versatility, what they bring to the table, overall usefulness, and stuff like that. So, I think I'll quickly explain one thing. You're not going to be seeing any cleaners lower than A tier. A tier, like, I would say B tier is like middle of the pack, right? Like I would say like in any game, for me, B tier is like mid usefulness, whether it's fighting games, whether it's like anything that has, you know, tiers like this to be discussed. I would say B is like standard normality. That's your kind of middle point. No cleaner in this game is lower than A tier. There is not a single bad cleaner in this game. It's just a question of what deck you are running, what makes that character useful, and how much they contribute to others, and overall, how many types of builds will work for them. And even if they're more, a more limited cleaner, if the thing they do really well is really useful, then that alone is going to push them right up there. So first things first, I am going to say that I think Walker is an S-tier cleaner, for sure. I think Walker is one of the best cleaners in the whole game, just because of how the game itself is played on Nightmare. You're really playing for, like, team survivability. Damage is incredibly important. And Walker is just... he's not a very flashy cleaner, but you've also got to look at what they start with as well. And I think Walker starting with a decent kit, he does start with a grenade. He gets that absolute, 10% damage is a large number to just have off the bat. That's very reliable. It's very strong. And obviously the team health. The team health is one of the best things about Walker, because 10 health is a decent amount. That's like, what, 10% of everyone's max. But then as you think, anyone in the party that gives them more health, like if you've got a Doc, that's going to synergize well with Walker, because he's giving everyone more base numbers that she's going to be able to, make more if she does have things like, experienced EMT and stuff like that. He is just a really good, useful teammate to have on the team. Always useful, does just about a bit of everything that is useful on Nightmare. I would say, is, going into the other side of things, though,
you're not a true gamer.
A little more limited, I am going to put Hoffman at A. I think Hoffman is, again, solid cleaner. I am going to be saying that about everyone in the game. I don't think any character is bad. But Hoffman's whole shtick is ammo. Now, the thing is, he has to be the one to get the kill with ammo, to have the percentage chance to drop for ammo, which is good if you're holding out with, like, barbed wire, if he's using a lot of pipe bombs. If he's taking out a lot of the crowds with throwable objects, he has a good chance to constantly drop ammo, which is useful. However, with a coordinated team, you don't really need the extra ammo that Hoffman brings. I think even though ammo is a very important thing to be managing on Nightmare, if you're playing Nightmare, I'm assuming you're playing with a squad of at least like 3 people. If it is quick play, you're using comms, you're using voice chat, and if you have communication, ammo is one of the easiest important mechanics to play around, because you just make sure that you're all using different, weapon types, you're dropping stuff for each other, and low-key, I actually think one of the strongest things that Hoffman has is an early access to 2 throwables, because he can grab, stuff as you find it and just throw it if he wants and still have 1 left in reserve. Or he can just hold on to 2 frags and take out 2 tall boys or 2 key enemies immediately. That's 2 pipe bombs. It's a really useful thing, but it's not... The main thing he brings to the table, coordination will do instead if you're doing it with a squad. But still by no means bad. He starts with TAC 14, really strong shotgun, M19, decent sidearm. So he's definitely still solid. Another S-tier cleaner, Carly, for sure S-tier in my opinion. For 2 main, very, very important reasons, and 1 slightly less important, but still good. Number 1, team use speed. Use speed affects just about everything you will do in this game, there is never a situation that having use speed is not going to be helpful, whether you're picking someone up, whether you're reviving them, whether you're using a health item, whether you're, interacting with objectives. Anything that you use, the clue is in the name, use speed, right? And she gives everyone 50%. That means that if anyone in the deck, even her, has like a screwdriver just put somewhere, that's 100% use speed. They now become the one that revives. They become the one that does all the objectives and stuff like that. That is so useful to have in clutch moments where you need to get someone up, for a good res, or maybe you just need to interact with something and gun it for wherever's next. Really useful thing to have by itself. Also, the fact that she could see hazards for a decent amount of spot. Now, you could argue that her ability to see hazards aren't as useful because of, the more you play the game, the more you learn the maps and the levels, you will be able to just know where to expect things, and that is true. However, it can be clutch, right? When you hear that a specialist spawned and you have a rough idea on where it is not the same as knowing definitively there is an enemy there, around that corner, this is what they are, and that's where they're going to be. I think that kind of information in the heat of the moment is so good and cannot be understated. And I think having a Carly on the squad is a really reliable thing and makes everything a lot easier. Also, the fact, the less important thing that's good, she starts with a toolkit. Toolkits are a really useful thing. I know I've been saying that a lot. Really useful, very useful. It is what it is. It is a useful thing to have, a toolkit, to start with, that you don't have to buy. They can be quite expensive. And just having one, makes a lot of difference. It does help, especially on certain levels, like right at the beginning of Act 1, Act 2, you've got the bridge. Like, if there are objectives that you can skip by using a toolkit on Nightmare, that can mean all the difference, because that means you now get to save ammo, you get to save throwables, you don't take hits, so you keep your health items. Definitely something that you should be relying on if you've got the means for it, and she just starts with one. From there, I would say another A tier. I would say Evangelo. I think Evangelo, team move speed, definitely good. His own ability to break out of stuff does let him be a little bit more kind of self-reliant. Again, that is good. However, he is kind of mobility the character. And that's not bad, because you can build for mobility. Like, if you're, going for speedy builds or speed running through, if you're running through as a party, it kind of makes sense that you'd have an Evangelo just to give everyone a bit of move speed. But that is his kind of whole purpose, like... Move speed is useful on Nightmare, but I would say stamina is more important than move speed, because stamina is more tied to overall survivability because of quick melee, because of sprinting. Obviously, if you're using bunny hopping and you're being very stamina efficient in general, that's where most of your move speed is going to come from, as opposed to the team move speed. He doesn't start with great weapons. He is only really built for being hypermobile, which you can do in a party, but it's a lot more restrictive. Still useful though, still handy to have that kind of survivability, because that is the name of the game on Nightmare. The more you can survive and the longer you can survive, like if people are down and you need to just like juke around and find a moment to get a revive, let's say you've got a Carly on the team and you're playing Evangelo. Evangelo can absolutely make those clutch plays, whether it's just get to the safe room because stuff's going wrong and he just needs to go through, or if people are down and you need to like make space to go and get those quick revives, he is good at that. But that's more of like a trump card as opposed to an overall, sternly survivable thing. Now, from there, I am going to say it, I'm going to put Holly into S. I think Holly is by far the best melee character, and melee has been proven time after time to be a Nightmare-friendly playstyle. Having someone with melee on the team on Nightmare makes things so much more reliable. You can set off alarms a bit more without having to worry about it. Obviously, you can hold choke points. Her ability to get stamina back per kill, even if you're not running melee, applies to gunshots as well. Her stamina efficiency and built-in damage reduction makes her so good. As well as, obviously, she starts with a stun gun. That's nice because you can be a bit more upfront. You can be that frontline tankiness even from the get-go. And if you get hit by Sleeper, you can keep yourself alive. If shit goes wrong, you can keep yourself going. But as you begin
all
to
we
get,
can say is, if you don't play
as
this
you
game,
begin
you're
to
not
get
a true
more
gamer.
Cards on deck and her survivability goes up, that built-in 10% resistance can turn a deck from 60% resistance to like 70%, and that is a gigantic amount of damage to be resisting. as well as giving the team stamina regen. You know, she brings a lot to the table that is really good on Nightmare, especially if you have a melee user. Now, you could argue that makes her a bit more limited, and that's, you know, one of the reasons I've got Hoffman and Evangelo down here. But overall, I don't think that's really a problem, because it's definitely one of those cases that I was talking about where she does one thing really well, i.e. like resistance and stamina. But that is such a useful thing. It easily keeps her up to this side of things. And that's why I've got her up here for sure. I would say another A-tier character. I would really want to put Jim in S-tier, but I'm going to put him at the top of A. For one reason and one reason alone. Jim's passive is his strongest thing, but it's a double-edged sword. Being able to just build up 10 stacks and a huge amount of base damage is so good. However, due to Nightmare, you're not really going to be avoiding single instances of damage. Now, you only really need 4 stacks of his passive to match Walker's constant damage output. So, you know, you could end up surpassing Walker's damage a lot. However, on Nightmare, Charred Ridden are going to ruin your passive. Blighted Ridden are going to ruin your passive. And the number one thing that I think holds Jim back, and if this one thing was changed, he would be night and day better, Friendly Fire. Friendly Fire undoes your passive. So if you've got it fully stacked and a teammate punches you, if a teammate hits you with a stray bullet, it does not matter. If you take damage in any way, even from Friendly Fire, your passive is undone completely. However, he does get the weak spot damage for the team, which is really good. He does start with... I think when it comes to starting loadouts, he's on a bit of the weaker side, because the 357 Magnum isn't great without attachments. Barbed Wire is situational. You're kind of better off dropping it for whoever melee is, so they can just, you know, if stuff hits the fan, your melee user can kind of just drop it and sit in the Barbed Wire. But he does start with, you know, a sniper, so it's not terrible. But Jim's starting loadout, I think, is one of the weaker in the game, in my opinion. But luckily, you know, you can find stuff in the safe room. You can swap with teammates if they'd rather have different things. Maybe they start with, like, a sidearm, and they'd rather have the 357 for the damage spread. So, you know, there are ways to work around it. And when you do get a good, you know, I mean, Jim is my favorite cleaner. When you play a good Jim game, and you're keeping your passive stacked, you're avoiding damage, you are a complete nuke of a damage machine. Like, you just annihilate things just with his built-in passive effect, which lets you be a bit more frugal with cards early on. So you can maybe not go so top-heavy with damage. You can go for, like, you know, something else early on maybe. But overall, I think his passive is what makes and breaks him in terms of usefulness. And his passive is so easy to undo on Nightmare that it does hold him back. However, you can play around it. You can get it stacked. And when you do, he is a complete asset of a damage dealer for the party. Now, okay. A definite, absolutely S-tier character, in my opinion, is going to be Doc. That built-in healing efficiency, the built-in heal that she gets on every player, and the built-in trauma reduction, oh my god. Is that insane? Like, survivability is the key in Nightmare. Like, unless you're going for full speedrun decks and you're just sprinting through and you're playing it, like, you know, quote-unquote normally, Doc is an asset to any team. Her ability to keep people going, to stabilize things that's going wrong, she basically can give a free bandage to every teammate. That is crazy. The built-in trauma resistance synergizes with anyone else that's building damage reduction or resistance. If you've got a melee user and there's just a Doc in the party, the melee user is now going to stay alive a lot. If you've got a shotgun user building for damage resistance, that trauma reduction is going to keep them going, because that is a fat amount as well. It's 25% trauma resistance. Cannot be overstated just how much of a difference that makes on Nightmare. And I mean, there are a lot of different medic cards, Doc cards that can work well, and she just, again, because of her built-in trauma resistance,
all we can say
built-in
is,
healing
if you
efficiency,
don't play this game, you're not a true
she
gamer.
is just, by design, the best healer in the game. You know, the only thing that, like, Mom has over her is the built-in, like, Team Extra Life, but you equip one card and she's got that too. You know, just so useful, Really strong character to have, especially if you've got someone playing Doc that's good at staying alive, and they don't just go down in every engagement. Maybe they're building for stamina, maybe they've got some damage on deck, or whatever it is. A real lifesaver. Because the main benefit of a strong medic on Nightmare is stuff's going to hit the fan. You know, eventually you might set off something you weren't ready for. You'll get a timed horde at a terrible time. A boss is going to spawn at a weird spot, and you've got to deal with a horde. Those situations where you just get slammed on by the AI director, and then you survive the fight, but you've got no health, you've got no lives, you're low on ammo, you're low on anything. Doc's ability, better than any other character, to bring you back from those situations is by itself reason enough that she is good, and absolutely one of the stronger cleaners. Now, we have Mum. Now, I am going to put her in S tier for a few reasons. Number one, she starts with the ranch rifle, and oh my god, is the ranch rifle a super, super good weapon. There is not a single member in a 4-player party that is not going to benefit from a ranch rifle. And that is just facts. Whether you're building for ARs and you want to really emphasize that damage, ranch rifle's good for it. Whether you're not building damage at all and you just want a good, efficient weapon that's ammo efficient, got decent reload speed, and does decent damage and works at multiple ranges, give that person the ranch rifle. That alone is a really good thing about Mum, but it's not even close to what makes her so good. Number one, giving everyone a team extra life. Oh my goodness, that is useful. The ability to just have that extra chance. If you've got a Carly, revive speed is better. If you've got anyone built for any form of use speed, let's say you've got you know, a Doc on the team and they've got like combat medic, that's going to be really good. And it also takes a lot of pressure off the medic because they don't have to take needs of the many, which means that that's another card that, you know, your main medic now has more health because they're not losing it thanks to needs of the many, and they're also still getting the benefit of you giving everyone an extra life. And as long as you've got one extra life, that's fine. You don't really need to get more than that. And Mum just giving everyone that immediately, so good. But she is also one of the clutchest characters in the game because of that instant revive. And her ability to start with 2 health items. Give her 2 pills. Like, if you throw, like, poultice on Mum and you just go for, like, bandages and pills, or you throw on any of the cards that are aimed at, like, regular cheap heals, her ability to just start with 2 health items, like, realistically, you might not even need to hold more than that. If you're just finding health items and using them straight away, Mum is really good at making the most of that because of just her ability to just grab and go right from the get-go. But the fast heal is easily one of the best things about Mum as a character. Or the fast revive, sorry. You know, she gets 1 quick revive per chapter. Considering how long it takes to revive people as a base, that is one of the clutchest things you can have in this game. Because how many situations have you been in where one person's down, and if there was just one more person in the fight, you'd win. If there was one more person up, you can make it to the safe room. Or, you know, someone's down and they're holding the defib, they're holding the pipe bombs that you need for the next segment, or anything like that. Normally, it's like, crap, how am I going to pick you up? There's enemies everywhere. When shit's hit the fan and you are being completely swamped, she can just run in, pick someone up, run out. Just like that. It takes no time at all. And that helps her and the whole team an incredible amount of time. And honestly, chat, I feel good about this. I think this is pretty much as good as I would want it to be. Now, I must reiterate, before we end this talk and discussion, not a single cleaner in this game is bad. There's a reason the lowest I have it is A tier. No one is bad. Provided on the decks you've got and the builds you're going for, I can't think of a single instance that you wouldn't want any of these cleaners. For some reason or another, they do all have their uses, and they are all things that are really good on Nightmare. It just might take a bit more coordination, you might be a bit more limited in your decks, but regardless, there is not a single cleaner in this game that is not a solid pick overall. And on that note, for the sake of YouTube, where I'll probably be putting this, thank you very much for watching. Do let me know what you think. Of course, as they change the game, I don't know if they're going to be, like, balancing cleaners. I don't know if they'll be, like, changing them around. I know they said that, you know, with DLC, we're going to be seeing more eventually. But overall, this is kind of just my thoughts on all the cleaners in the game and where I think they stack up. So do let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.